Everyone. This time we're going to be talking about your most elevated planet, and I'm going to be discussing about what it is, how to find it, what it means, and whether or not the one you have is super important or not. Enjoy. Starzology, astrology with heart. Hey, this is Alison again, and this time we're going to be looking at your most elevated planet. There's only going to be one planet in each chart that can be most elevated. It is the planet that is actually towards the very top of the chart. It's one the closest to the midheaven, and it can be on either side of the midheaven. Each chart will only have one most elevated planet. Not all most elevated planets are made equal. Every chart will have a most elevated planet, but it won't necessarily be strong. Some are, and if they are, this is what we're trying to find out, whether or not your chart does have a strong most elevated planet, because if it does, we're going to use it. And when a planet is strong and most elevated, it will support your career, reputation, and public image, and it's really is a good support for your midheaven and its complex. So how would you find your most elevated planet? If you look at your chart, first you need to find the midheaven. And then we're going to be looking for the nearest planet to that. It can be on either side. And in this particular chart, you can see that Uranus is the most elevated planet. It's the planet closest to the midheaven, because we actually ignore the North Node. That's never going to be most elevated at all. You know that the midheaven is the intersection between the prime vertical and the plane of the ecliptic. The most elevated planet is frequently in the 9th or the 10th houses in a chart, but it can actually be in any house in a chart. The dispositor of the midheaven and your most elevated planet, this is interesting. If your most elevated planet is actually still the ruler of the midheaven, it gains weight. This is a very strong position for this planet. Rulership and exaltation, planets in rulership or exaltation and rulers of the MC are very powerful. But if your most elevated planet is in detriment or fall, it reduces the effect of your most elevated planet. If the midheaven when the dispositor of your midheaven and your most elevated planet are the same. This is a very powerful position. And I'm going to give some examples here, not particularly of this chart for Stephen King, but generally. That, say, for instance, your midheaven was Libra. Say your midheaven was in Libra. And if your most elevated planet then is Venus, which is the planet that rules Libra, it is an absolute strong power position for this planet, because it's then also most elevated and it actually rules the midheaven. This is the best placement. If your midheaven is Libra and your most elevated planet is Saturn, it will add weight to the most elevated planet because Saturn is exalted in Libra. So Saturn is well placed in Libra and can support the meaning of that midheaven as well. So this is strong for two. Now, on the other side, that if your midheaven is in Libra and your most elevated planet is Mars, this will actually reduce the ability of that Mars to be your most elevated planet, because Mars is in detriment in Libra. It doesn't work very well there. So this will then reduce the power of Mars as your most elevated planet. And again, if your midheaven is Libra and your most elevated planet is the Sun, it will reduce the potency for this elevated planet, as the Sun is in fall in Libra. The Sun is not comfortable in Libra. So it does depend on the essential dignity of the planet that is your most elevated planet, if it actually, in its relationship to the sign on your midheaven. So let's have a look at the nature of your most elevated planet. This is the planet that is highest in the sky, and it's the one that is closest to the midheaven. Now, if your most elevated planet, the midheaven shows what the world knows you for, and any planet connected to the midheaven through an aspect such as a conjunction, sextile or square will be an influence to this, and especially so if it is the most elevated planet. So if you have a most elevated planet that aspects the midheaven, it gains power. If your most elevated planet is not in aspect to your midheaven, it is slightly weaker. So let's look at a couple of the aspects that you can have to the midheaven. So if your most elevated planet is conjunct your midheaven, this really is a very powerful position, and it's going to be the planet right at the very top of your chart, closest to the midheaven. And because if it's a conjunction, it will be within 8 degrees to the midheaven, and that's a great spot. This is really the best most elevated planet to even have, because it's like it's lighting a way for you. And I often relate it to, if you think about the star over the stable in Bethlehem, this is the star, the planet that is absolutely guiding your life and showing you the way. It's an incredibly powerful position, and that's when the most elevated planet is conjunct your midheaven. If you have a most elevated planet sextile your midheaven, a sextile aspect is 60 degrees, this will bring support to the nature of the midheavens. Planets in this position usually indicate latent talents which can be utilized by the midheaven for your career and public image. And those two stars show if a planet was in sextile to your midheaven, it would be either side at 60 degrees in aspect there to the midheaven. And you may have planets there as well. This is a very nice position to have a most elevated planet when it's sextile your midheaven. If we then look at the square to the midheaven, planets which are square to your midheaven will be found, well, square to the midheaven in the two positions of the yellow stars there. And you can see already that it's now moving a lot further away from the actual midheaven. So this is an aspect where progress is strived for in the nature of the elevated planet. That planet squaring your midheaven will strive you forward into life through your reputation, through your public image, and through your career. And what the world knows you for will all be pushed through from these squares. So if it is your most elevated planet and is square, it will drive the midheaven. And as I say there, all squares, aspects, or issues that are on the front burners of your chart. And if you don't know what that means, if you look at an oven, you've got 4 plates and the 2 back burners, and then you have stuff on the front burners, which is what you're attending to all the time, whereas things on the back burner can just simmer away quietly. And that's kind of what's all that's about. So of the 3 aspects that I'm discussing, the conjunction, the sextile, and the square, they're the important ones in relationship to an aspect from the most elevated planet to the midheaven. But it could be the case that your most elevated planet could actually be somewhere below the horizon. If all of your planets are below the horizon, then the most elevated planet will be there too. This is a weak position for a most elevated planet, and honestly, if I see this in a chart, I virtually dismiss it, because what this means is that the most elevated planet cannot really be utilized by the person. And the energy is not strong, it's not up there in the top, it's not near the midheaven, it's not aspecting, it's not part of it. And it really can be dismissed, and I wouldn't give much emphasis to a most elevated planet, which is actually not elevated at all because it's below the horizon. However, it does happen, and yeah, it really is weaker when it's below the horizon. So a most elevated planet is weaker when it's below the horizon. But so what you're actually looking for in a strong most elevated planet is one that is high in the chart, aspecting the midheaven, and disposes the midheaven by rulership. If you have those 3 features, you will have a perfect most elevated planet, and you'll be able to use it well in your life. Not all most elevated planets will benefit the person whose chart it is. But if you do have a well-placed most elevated planet, it makes sense to work it to your advantage as best you can for your career, reputation, and public image. Thank you. Thanks for watching my video. I also want to tell you about a very special, what surprise for you I'm having, I suppose. If you subscribe and write a comment in below this video after you've watched it, I will be picking one of you to receive a featured chart. That will be your chart. I'll be featuring it in one of my next videos, and it can be anonymous. You can, if your name is, Bob Green, we can just call you Bob. But what I will do is I'll contact you, and you can give me your chart details, and I'll do an absolute chart reading for you right here on the channel. And yeah, so the cutoff for the videos to get a featured chart for this video is actually going to be December 1, 2017, and so get your name in there, subscribe, and put your comment, and we'll see who's the winner there. It's a very new initiative I'm starting. Clearly, this is only my 5th video for YouTube, so I'm still very much a beginner, but I hope you're going to enjoy this feature. Thank you so much, and don't forget to subscribe and like my videos, and we'll see you next time. Bye.